560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Today's the day. A historical day.
Yes.
Soon to be President Trump, former President Trump, is going to appear via Zoom, via video in a Manhattan courtroom to this clown trial that has been going on and the 34 felony counts for the hush money case. He's not going to be taken to jail. He's not going to be fined. He's not going to be put on probation. So again, this is just smoke and mirrors. This is just a way for Judge Merchan to pat himself on the back, Alvin Bragg, to say, yes, we did it. Mm-hmm. We tried to bring down a president, but guess what? It didn't work. And actually, it backfired on you.
Yeah.
Because people know, a lot of Americans know what it's like to be wrongly accused. Mm-hmm. Wrongly accused if you have different political views. Yep. Wrongly accused sometimes because you didn't commit the crime.
Correct.
And that's what happened here. There were no victims. There was no... I mean, the banks even applauded him, said, no, he paid back everything and on time, and we love doing business with him. Yeah. Where do we live? Let's begin there with our good friend, Ed Morrissey. Ed is the senior editor for hotair.com. Good morning, Ed. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, and great to be with you.
Yeah, so are you watching TV? Are you glued to the television yet as we are, doing the pregame here before his 8:30 court hearing before Judge Merchan?
I am amazed that Reuters has a live feed of the street outside the courtroom when Trump isn't even going to show up. And even if he did, what are you going to see there? I mean, honestly, what are you going to see? Has nobody ever seen Trump walk? I mean, are they going to put a pool of water out there and see if he can walk on the surface?
Oh.
I mean, a live feed. It's on Twitter right now. I stumbled across it this morning. I just got done finishing a post. It'll go up in a couple of minutes. And about the fact that they're having a live feed for a hearing that has absolutely no stakes in it any longer, and where Trump isn't even going to show up. But they've got a live feed. They've got a stand-up out there. Or I take that back. They don't have a stand-up, but they do have a live feed. They got a camera that's streaming the live feed outside the courtroom for whatever reason. These guys really want their spectacle. They really want their lawfare moment. They want the Frog March moment. They're not going to get it, but that's what they're looking for. That's what they want, and they're desperate, just desperate for it. And it's really almost a little sad.
Well, the whole thing was pathetic to begin with, but in a change of heart, President Trump or Donald Trump thanked the Supreme Court after they refused to request his halt to the sentencing hearing today. Did that surprise you at all? Because normally, he goes after the courts if they don't agree with him, but this time he did not.
I hadn't heard that, actually.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I think that they should have intervened because I think this whole thing is ridiculous. But one of the points that should be made is they actually did write an order that basically said, well, since Merchan's not going to impose any penalty whatsoever, then I guess we don't need to intervene in this, which was sort of a message to Merchan. It's like, well, you better not change your mind because we also meet on Fridays. And I think that was a little signal from the court saying, yeah, we're watching you today. So if you decide that you're going to try something else other than that, we are ready to put an end to the nonsense.
Now, Justice Roberts, I understand because we've lost him, but conservative Judge Amy Coney Barrett, she did not vote in favor of Trump on this one.
Well, and look, I mean, I think that there's an argument here that the appeal came at the wrong time to the Supreme Court, right? And there is a process to this, and that's part of the reason why Roberts and Barrett did this, and the reason, and they kind of put that in the order, is that these issues, because there's really going to be no consequences to the hearing today, these issues that are being brought up can be addressed on the normal, regular order, I guess you could call it, of appeal, which means they're going to appeal on the merits now through the New York system, and then they can appeal in the federal system on some of the constitutional grounds that they're talking about. And that can happen after the sentencing is done because that unlocks the appeals process. for Trump, and you know that they're going to be all over that. This was not a rejection on the merits. This was just basically saying this is not the proper time, and since there isn't any stakes involved in this hearing anymore, there's no harm in letting it go forward.
But Ed, isn't the consequence now they're able to call Trump a convicted felon? Because apparently I've heard and seen legal experts say he couldn't be called a convicted felon until sentencing. Isn't that one of the consequences, though?
Yeah, well, they were calling him that anyway, regardless. Right. I mean, this is sort of, I think, part of the whole media thing is like, oh, we can finally call him a convicted felon. Oh, we are so happy, and we are going to have cameras live on the street where nothing's happening, so we can capture that moment in time. I mean, it is of no consequence. Donald Trump faced the jury of his peers, and 77.3 million of them acquitted him of this type of thing. And that is not going to change. I mean, the election really mooted all of this, and I get why Mershon and Bragg don't want to admit to that, but it's over. You know, this is like a TV series that has gone on too long,
right?
And it's in the final season, and nobody cares. There's no stakes involved. Nobody's paying any attention to it. And the only people who are still flogging this are the network executives that are trying to get people to pay attention to them.
Right.
And that's all this is. And there's going to be one little burst of interest here, and then everybody's going to go back and do their thing. Nobody's going to care that this somehow legitimizes the idea that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. When this gets reversed, that goes away anyway. So it's temporary at best.
And you know what, Ed? You got an article on hotair.com where you talked about Trump has Trump crossed the streams, and you shared a tweet from 538. Trump is on the verge of having a net positive favorable rating, something he never had in his first term. When you think about everything he did, I personally think the assassination attempt and his response and how he responded with fight, fight, fight is one of the reasons. Because you look at it, The Rock and all these different people reached out to him to say, "Whoa, you changed my mind about a few things about you." You think that has a lot to do with his favorable rating increasing?
Well, I think it has something to do with it, but what's really interesting is that most of this increase is since the election. I mean, you take a look at that 538 track, and again, these are aggregations of other polls, right? So it's tracking a number of other polls. RCP has the exact same track on theirs too. Is that there was still a significant gap. I think it was 8.5 points on the on the 538 aggregation, and I think it was closer to 9 on RCP. But over the last 2 months, that has narrowed rapidly. And right now, even YouGov has them up one, and YouGov is not one of his better polls. And this is in terms of favorability, because obviously he's not in the job yet, so they can't do job approval ratings for him. But he has never been a net positive, favorable person in American politics. Just never. He's never been plus. He's usually been somewhere at least 5 or 6 points underwater on that measure, and he still won an election that way. And he won an election that way this time too. But he is suddenly, over the last couple of months, and I think it's a combination of people being sort of having the scales fall from their eyes about how the media has been treating Trump, as well as the combination of having him in contrast to Joe Biden's last few weeks in office and the disaster that's just unfolding in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, I think people are looking at that and going, we're kind of glad that somebody else is coming in here like really soon.
And well, yesterday we laid our 39th president to rest, Jimmy Carter. They had a service for him in Washington, D.C., and then in Plains, Georgia. And the whole world now is talking about, what were they talking about? President Trump and Barack Obama were yucking it up. So it's almost as if they know Trump is not Hitler and he's not a threat to democracy, right, Ed Morrissey?
Well, yes. I mean, that's sort of the takeaway of this, right? Barack Obama chuckles with Hitler is not exactly something that you'd expect the media to report. And yet there it is. It's on video. They're sitting there having a conversation, and they're both chuckling with each other. By the way, I love the part where George W. Bush comes by and gives Barack Obama a little tap on the stomach. I mean, if you grew up in the 1960s or 1970s, you recognize that. That's a circle of dudes moment, right?
Yeah, but in doing that, he didn't say hi or acknowledge President Trump or Melania, or was it an awkward situation where Barack Obama kind of was boxing them out from him, or I just don't know.
No, I just don't think that there's any love lost
Yeah.
between W and Trump. Trump spent years going after his family and both his father and himself, and I don't think that there's any love lost between them. And I mean, hey, that's just I don't think Trump's bothered by that.
Well, and then there's Karen Pence. Oh my, you talk about bitter. She defined bitterness yesterday. She was oozing just hate from her eyes. She was so mad. She would not stand up and shake Trump's hand or Melania's hand. And the only person she stood up for to shake his hand was Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton.
No, I didn't see that either. But
Whoa,
then again,
you gotta look at that.
I wasn't buried in the minutia of that. I was just watching the clips as they were flying. But I have to take a look at that. I do need to take a look and see how Trump addressed the Supreme Court thing. I'm very surprised.
He said he
by that.
accepted it.
He said he accepted it.
Yeah.
Huh?
You
Good
know,
for him.
hey-
I mean, honestly, because it's sort of meaningless, right?
Right.
And that's been my point. He understands that it's meaningless. Nothing that happens is going to matter for a number of different reasons, but mostly because there's going to be no consequences at all.
Yeah.
And I think he's actually kind of happy with that. I think he'll live with that and let the appeals courts deal with the rest.
Yeah.
And what happens with his gag order? Is that lifted today too? Now that
I think it was lifted earlier. I think the
Okay.
gag
It was
order
partially lifted.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fully over by now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way to justify it now. So
Right.
yeah, I mean that's not going to be an issue.
Hey Ed, I got a question for you. A YouTuber makes a great point. Rip to you. When you think about all that's been done in the last 4 years, how do you think that we'll see an Enron type effect? The shredder being used a lot throughout a lot of these government agencies.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of concerned about how much that's going to be in use over like the next week and a half. And that redacted report that came out about the origins of Crossfire Hurricane, I'm sure you guys saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I kind of am concerned that Kash Patel is going to get in there. He's going to have access to that if it still exists, and I'm not necessarily sure that he's going to find it once he gets in there, and that's a problem. That's a real problem. That type of thing has to be preserved so that we can have accountability. And if those things are starting to get zeroed out, shredded, whatever you want to call it, that's a real problem for government accountability and for and the protection of liberty.
Yeah, but if he does a blanket pardon, does it really matter? If all these people, what if Biden I heard Will Chamberlain yesterday on the Morning Answer with Biden's pardon power. What if he just blanket pardons everybody in this administration?
But some people don't want it. Real quickly, here's Adam Kinzinger.
I don't want it. Look, here's the
You
thing.
don't want it?
No, because the second a pardon is issued, and look, I understand the theory behind it, because Donald Trump has clearly said he's going to go after everybody. And it's not going to be for the January 6th investigation. What they'll do is they'll weaponize other investigations. They'll look into everything and start an investigation that'll end up coming to naught, force people to pay money. This happened to Brad Raffensperger in Georgia as he was forced to defend himself. But the second you take a pardon, it looks like you're guilty of something. I'm guilty of nothing besides bringing the truth to the American people and in the process embarrassing Donald Trump, because for 187 minutes he sat there and did absolutely nothing and showed how weak and scared he truly was. So no, I don't want it.
What do you have to say to Adam Kinzinger?
Well, first off, he's right. If you accept the pardon, it does make you look guilty. There's just no other way around it. And I do think that most of the people that are on the list of blanket pardons probably don't want it for that very reason. But the other thing is it doesn't really matter if you can't prosecute them. If you expose that, that's good enough. I mean, that it may not create a criminal record for these people, but it will create a public record that will follow them around for a very, very long time. And it will underscore the corruption that had gone on in the previous administration. And that's something that I think Joe Biden wants to prevent. The problem for Joe Biden on the blanket pardon thing, by the way, is that once you're pardoned, you can't claim the Fifth Amendment.
Right.
You can still get subpoenaed. You can still get hauled in front of courts and in front of committees and be compelled to testify. And once you're pardoned, you can't claim the Fifth Amendment. You have to actually testify, and you have to testify truthfully. And if you claim the Fifth Amendment, you can end up with a criminal contempt charge against you, and you can end up sitting in prison for a while over it. It's happened before, and prosecutors use that all the time. So that's another reason why I think that maybe some of these guys don't really want a pardon. They would prefer to just not have to speak.
Okay. All right. Ed Morrissey, we're going to have to leave it there for today. Senior editor for hotair.com. Always a pleasure having you on our show.
Hey, Ed.
Yes.
Hey, Ed.
Hey,
Uh-oh.
Ed.
I
just
feel
gotta
a
tell you.
personal,
No, I just gotta tell
ask
you.
coming on.
I told you many years ago when Trump first announced that he was going to win and it was going to be big.
No, when he was going to run again for election.
Right, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I told Ed that he was going to win and it was going to be big. And I didn't expect the popular vote, though, Ed. That I did not expect.
It's amazing.
Well, what do you want him to do?
impressive.